This year's prize is about quantum mechanics, and I'm sure you've heard of quantum mechanics, and it usually is portrayed as something which is sort of very weird, very mystical. But this year's prize is for work that has made clear what quantum mechanics really means.
In today's video, I'm gonna be looking at the research and articles related to the award winners of the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics, whose groundbreaking work resonated with the mainstream media, prompting articles and YouTube videos with tabloid-like titles, which, despite the huge implications of the research, they have failed to pinpoint the true implications of such achievement, and the scientists tiptoe around it and talk about it with hesitation, just like this gentleman which speaks about the mysticism of quantum physics. And these scientists are afraid of ridicule, they're afraid of the awkwardness which comes with discussing this mysticism surrounding quantum physics. But in this video I'm gonna go into the actual implication of proving Einstein wrong and proving that such quantum entanglement, the quote-unquote spooky action at a distance, really means, what this really means for us and for everything. The universe is not locally real, they say. There is no locality. Time and space as we know it is some sort of an illusion. Would this be the same to say that the universe is all connected? Would this be the same to say that connectedness is a fundamental aspect of reality, that such oneness, which often comes in ancient texts and philosophies, in modern reports of altered states of consciousness like near-death experiences, psychedelic reports, out-of-body experiences, etc. All of these things which psychologists in the 1970s deemed as a mental illness, as quote-unquote mystical psychosis, all of these things which are thrown in the basket of woo, of new age, of nonsense, of fantasy, could all of these have a scientific basis after all? And only in 2022 the prize is awarded to people who have proved that such weirdness and such absurdity that the early pioneers in quantum physics were talking about is actually true. In proving Einstein and the horde of incredulous scientists wrong, this attitude which made them shut up and calculate for more than 100 years, along with all of the research that I've been featuring in this channel, which has been so recent, merely in the last 5, 3, 10, 15 years, we could very well be looking at a third revolution in quantum physics, one which at its core holds the theme of consciousness and all of its quote-unquote fantastical possibilities. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Alright, so as mentioned in today's video, I'm going to be going into these articles related to the Nobel Prize of Physics in 2022. I'm going to be going into these articles, October 4, 2022, there's some others. It's all this month on October of 2022, but something that I want to point out right from the get-go is that the actual, the latest scientific research on this that proved a significant loophole-free, this is important, loophole-free test of Bell's theorem with entangled photos. This is the latest one that proved that indeed the reality is spooky. There's not the universe is not locally real, so on and so forth. 2015. This is 7 years ago, and it's barely getting recognized by the people here. So as I've been saying, all this research has been going on in the latest 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and it's barely getting noticed, it's barely being understood. The reason why this sort of went mainstream was because all the implications that they sort of point to, because there's a lot of hesitation from scientists, from people involved in the Nobel Prize, from people involved in the scientific community to say the exact think that this matters, to say the exact implications and what does this really mean. They don't even understand, they don't know. Even people with degrees in physics struggle to understand it, and some who do still find parts of it hard to swallow. The bizarre, as I've been saying, the bizarre world of quantum physics, the bizarre, the magic, the alien, the strange, the weird world of quantum physics, as they call it, the spooky world of quantum physics. Now, this is the main article that I'm gonna be covering. This is gonna be an ongoing research in the outline, as I said. This is the actual research. You can go through it, you can disprove them, you can go into it and say that no, they're wrong, and then you can come with your own arguments if anybody's interested in actually going into the research. I'm gonna be going into this article as well. The universe is not locally real. I'm gonna take bits and parts from it. The original article was in Scientific American, but for some reason it's blocked on Scientific American. The state of journalism is a little bit sad at the moment, but anyway, this is a repost of the original article. It says the universe is not locally real. As I said, a little bit of hesitation as well, because they cannot say that the universe is not real, because they're gonna get all the people angry. Just like sometimes I get on my videos and people just straight up being hostile. So they're saying it's not quote unquote locally real. So it's also important to define what we're talking about. It's not locally. What does this even mean? There's no locality. There's really no space, there's no time. This is what people are saying. Okay, but we're gonna go into it. So yeah, this caused a little bit of sparked the interest in the public. What does the universe is not locally real mean? This was a Reddit post as of making this video 13 days ago. 20k upvotes, 1.5 thousand comments, and the moderators have closed it because, as you would imagine, people on Reddit have a lot of opinions and a lot of ideas around this and what this actually means and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of comments that were removed and a lot of people being banned. It's I find it really funny because I myself have been banned from a lot of these Reddit sites. It's this is consciousness and quantum physics. All of these things are the main, mainly the concept of consciousness is the main topic for science and for philosophy at the moment. All right, so what's the whole thing about? This is one of the winners, Anton Sillinger. The last research that I'm gonna be linking below. He was heading it. This was this gentleman over here. So this year's Nobel Prize win was awarded Tuesday to 3 men for their work on a phenomenon called quantum entanglement, which is so bizarre, weird, alien, so on and so forth. I don't like that Albert Einstein was skeptical, famously calling it spooky, what is called spooky action at a distance. I made a short about this. I'm gonna be linking it below. I'm probably gonna go into it, but the main idea was that Einstein couldn't conceive the idea that these particles would talk to each other and they would travel faster than light. There shouldn't be anything faster than light, but it's plain right there. The keyword here is instantly. Okay. So how does it work? Even people with degrees in physics struggle to understand it, and some who do still find parts hard to swallow, said Chris Phillips, a physicist at Imperial College London. This college is important because some of the other research on psychedelics is coming from here, from Christopher Timmerman. I made videos about this. I'm not gonna link it because it's not directly connected to what I'm talking about here, but I made a video about a researcher from this college on how transcendental states or outward experience, near-death experience, psychedelics, so on and so forth. When people say that they met God, what is the brainwave connection to all of this? You can find it with brainwaves and the transcendental experience on this channel. So this is one of the reasons when people start talking about quantum physics. I personally, I don't know everything about quantum physics. I barely understand some things, but I do understand the whole picture. So when people say that they fully understand quantum physics, you cannot believe them. And when people tell you that you're wrong about something regarding quantum physics, you cannot fully believe them, because even the people with degrees in physics struggle. People don't understand. We don't really know what we're looking at. This is far more complex than we might believe. So this is why there is the so-called quote-unquote quantum interpretation, because the answers are still open. The questions are still open. We don't have a final conclusion to what quantum physics actually means. Just as a bit of a parenthesis, something that I wanted to say at the beginning was I saw some of the interviews that they made to, not the actual winners of the prize, but the people around it, the people around the Nobel Prize, and the people, you know, the scholars and the scientists, so on and so forth. And since all of this went mainstream due to the spooky science and the universe is not locally real, the universe is not real, there's no locality in the universe, there's no time, no space, what is the universe? Is it a hologram? Is it a simulation? What are we talking about? So the journalists would ask these scholars, what does these mean to us? What does this mean to the regular people? And the scientists, the scholars, were so hesitant, and they were at the same time so excited about the results, but so hesitant to say exactly what it meant. And they just went on circles going on about, oh yeah, this is huge for quantum physics and so on and so forth. And then they talk about the regular things like, oh yeah, encrypted banking and whatnot, and just the implications are huge, but they are so afraid to lose their reputation, to be called crazy, to be ridiculed, and we need to get over this if we are truly looking for truth. Alright, so what's the whole thing about? The whole thing is about entanglement, spooky action at a distance. What's the whole thing about entanglement? It says here, if photon is put through a special, this is just one example. It can, through a special crystal, it can be split into separate photons. They're different colors from the one you started with. They're different things, different pieces of matter. But because they started from one photon, they are quote-unquote entangled. It gets weird. If you measure one photon, it instantly affects the other, no matter how far you separate. When they say measure, this is what I've been going on in the last few videos. They put it through a sensor, they shoot it through a particle gun or whatever, or a beam or whatever, and they look at the micro level on how they have detectors, or they look at it, or they record the information, they record the data, and then they look at the data, so on and so forth. Even if nobody's looking at it and it's just recorded by a sensor, as I've been saying, and I'm gonna be making this argument over and over and over, there's conscious intent behind it, and whoever looks at the information is a consciousness. Consciousness is always involved in such measurement. The counter argument that the scientists are saying is because it was recorded by something else, there's no need for consciousness. But at the end of the time, everything is consciousness, because even at the final stage, anyone who looks at the results, the results were created by a conscious intent, and reading the results, even thinking about the whole thing, needs a consciousness. So consciousness is always involved. Now the weird thing here is that if such consciousness perceives a reality and looks at one of the photons who were entangled in the first place, the other one instantly is affected. If you measure one photon, it instantly affects the other, no matter how far you separate them. And now this, how far they do it in like different labs. And now the theory is that in theory, if one is at one end of the cosmos, of the universe, and the other one is at the other end, it doesn't really matter, because they're entangled. So they have ways to prove this, and I might go into the whole thing, but this is the theory. I made a short about this. So the main issue that Einstein had with this is that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, and these things instantly affect each other. At the time that you look at it, the other one, boom, it switches. It correlates to the first one. Why? Because there is no space. This is what scientists say. There is no space, there is no time. Everything is relative. And when you go into, of course, in all of this is science, right? All of this is science. When you go into the bulk of data on reports on near-death experiences, on out-of-body experiences, on UFO abductions, on all of these things, on psychedelics, what they are told by these quote-unquote entities. And now, if somebody came to my video just thinking that I'm just gonna talk about science, and they hear about this, okay, they're thinking he's going into UFOs. Look at it, Google it. We have the first scientific consensus statement for the future research of near-death experiences. I'm going to link it somewhere on the screen. This is happening in the last 2-3 years. We have the bulk of the data, and these are, according to the research, quote-unquote, hundreds of millions of reports saying the same thing. Those reports on near-death experiences are related to the UFO abduction reports and to the out-of-body experience reports and to the psychedelic reports, where these people meet entities and they meet beings, so they get some knowledge and they travel into the cosmos in a non-physical way. They get outside of their bodies. And there's the whole thing about the do not believe what I'm saying. Look at the link. If you don't wanna go through my video, go into the description and go into the actual article, go into the published research. This is why I always link the published research here. People need to know this. So okay, in those reports, what they're saying is that what people are saying is that these entities, or the knowledge they acquire, is that there is no space, there is no time. The universe, you can travel through it by thought. So now we have science saying that the universe is not locally real. This is why all of this is so important. We have the bulk of the reports meeting with scientific research. And as I said, this is the main purpose of this outline, of a rational divine outline. We're looking into all of the bulk of the data, of the anecdotal data, anecdotal evidence, all of that. We put it through ancient scriptures, ancient beliefs, philosophies, and then we add the important thing, the science on all of this. And what goes through the little gaps is what's going to get us closer to a truth, because as I said in one of the latest videos I made, there is no objective reality. It depends on your perspective. Alright, a new way to kill Schrödinger's cat. I don't really like this analogy that they do with Schrödinger's cat. They're mainly saying if they're entangling somewhere, you open one of the boxes, and if the one is dead, the other one is dead as well. It doesn't make a lot of sense, so you can go through it. Felix has seen this extremely strange thing, quote-unquote, firsthand in his laboratory. Not the cat, another experiment that he made, where he has two beams of photons set up. I can put my hand in one beam, and something happens to the other beam on the other side of the room instantaneously. I see a needle flick, he said. That would still be true if my laboratory was millions of miles across. This is what I said. In theory, if it was millions of miles across, it was one end of the cosmos, it would see the same. But they have ways to prove this. As he's saying, this is one part of the room, and then in the other part of the room where these entangled beams are connected somehow, if he affects one, the other one instantly is affected. So this is the entanglement that they're talking about. They have multiple ways to prove this. If you want to go into the whole thing, you can go through it. You can go through the main research. And all throughout these articles that I'm going to be linking, there's different experiments that have been conducted, and they mentioned them for anyone who is truly interested in going in-depth into it. There's all right there. As I said before, it was the fact that this occurs instantly that bothered Einstein, who dismissed this element of quantum entanglement called non-locality as spooky action at a distance in 1935. This is what I'm talking about. There's no distance. Everything is connected. In a way, what they're proving, you can call it a non-locality. Some other people might call it oneness, that everything is connected, that the universe is connected. And some of the words that they use here, telepathy, they talk about these particles talking to each other, and there's some sort of telepathic communication. Going back into the report that I'm talking about, those beings, those entities, some people call them angels, some people call them aliens, they communicate in a telepathic way, because what they're saying is there's no distance, there's nothing is separate. Consciousness is one, and everything is connected. So what science is proving here, instead that there is non-locality, you could say that there is connectedness. Non-locality, everything is one and connected. I keep coming back to a term that was coined in, I think, in the 1970s by psychologists, which is called mystical psychosis, quote unquote. They thought people who had these transcendental experiences, these out-of-body experiences, these altered states of consciousness, whether through psychedelics or whatnot, they were starting to feel something that was called, quote-unquote, oneness, this connectedness of the universe. So they, of course, said, oh, these people are crazy. We're going to call it mystical psychosis, because this is something coming from mystics and from the ascetics. And so they're going to call it mystical psychosis. So now in 2022, which is 50 years after they coined the term mystical psychosis, the Nobel Prize is awarded to scientists who are proving that the universe is non-local. There's no locality in the universe. Everything is connected. I find the whole thing so ironic. And this is what we're talking about. This is a true implication that these scholars do not want to talk. They rather talk about encrypted banking as some form to talk about entanglement. No, this is the implication here. All right, so he was bothered by this, you know, God don't play dice with reality, and the moon is there even if you don't look at it. You know, what they're saying is this simply cannot happen. There's no way that this happened. And all of these arguments are made to prove the absurdity of quantum physics, and all these absurdities are coming out to be real. It's the same thing that I was talking about in my last video. Okay, he instead believed that hidden variables must somehow be behind what was happening. In 1964, influential physicist John Stuart Bell found a way to measure whether there were, in fact, hidden variables inside quantum particles. This is just the pure skepticism and saying, no, there's got to be something else going on. Let's revise quantum physics. And this is a great thing. This is amazing, because this pushes the argument forward, and this makes these scientists just go into it in such a deep way that there's no room for mistakes. There are no loopholes, and this is what the latest one was all about. They managed to do it without loopholes, without any sort of possible mistakes. So this skepticism helped proved that indeed the universe is kind of crazy and everything is indeed a little bit weird. But saying the shut up and calculate attitude is in a way so positive, because it perfects, it refines the theories, and without a doubt we can start talking about these things. Okay, 2 decades later, French physicist Alain Aspect, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing any of these names incorrectly, who won the Nobel on Tuesday, and his team were among the first able to test Bell's theory in a laboratory. By testing its limits, they found that quantum mechanics resists all possible attack. When they're talking about the attacks, they're talking about these skeptic attacks, the attack from Einstein, saying like, no, that we need to revise it. The attack from Wigner, who said, okay, this is two realities can exist at the same time according to quantum theory. So he made the whole Wigner's friend experiment, which is what I was talking about in my previous video. I'm gonna link it somewhere in the screen. I titled it "Who Chooses Reality?" because I was talking about how the particle chooses and when does it choose and so on. And there's this universal observer in the multiverse theory and so on and so forth. I go on all of this in that video, but he made that argument to show the absurdity of quantum theory. It was an attack to quantum mechanics, and just the newest research from that experiment was in 2019. This is the one that I posted, that I linked in that video. And it proved that the Wigner's friend thought experiment is real. Two realities can exist at the same time, which means that there is no objective reality. Quantum mechanics resists all possible attacks. And as I said, this last one was in 2015. The one about Wigner's friend was in 2019. Would the scientists making those experiments, as they go on and make more experiments, and are the ones who are the one video before that I talked about how scientists are looking into how even molecules have this quantum phenomenon happening on them, that they exist, they can be they can show themselves as a wave function, even in large molecules. What is thought to be isolated to the realm of quantum, of atoms, even in large molecules with multiple atoms, present this wave function done through the rigorous experiments. So the idea is that quantum mechanics, quantum physics applies at all scales all of the time. But it is our perception, it is our consciousness which creates our specific reality in a way. Why? For some reason. So all of this research that I've been featuring in the last month have been in the latest 3-4 years. This one was 7 years ago, the winners. If these scientists that I've been featuring in this channel keep making experiments, are they going to be the Nobel Prize winners in 2030, 2035? Who knows? Are we talking about a third quantum revolution? I think so. I'm going to go further into this in the future. Alright, so that first article is a little bit short. Before I finish it, because I want to go into the very final paragraph, I think it's important, and I really like how it ends, and I'll go into why in just a second. But before that, I'm going to go into this other article, which is a little bit longer. It's the one that was originally published in Scientific American, which is a sort of a mainstream blog site. This one is also phys.org. These are sort of like a mainstream sciencey sort of blog site. As I said, if anyone is looking into the actual research, I'm going to link it below. This was from Schrödinger, Anton Schrödinger, and all of these scientists who were working on making a loophole-free test of Bell's theorem. And this article that I'm going to go into right now, they go a little bit further, dive deep into why Bell's theorem exists and how they developed it and so on and so forth. I'm going to go a little bit into it, not too deep because it's kind of mind-bending, but I'm going to go a little bit into it. Okay, so also the reason why I want to do this, to go into this article as well, is to emphasize what exactly are we talking about here. What, you know, how the journalist asks these scholars, okay, what does this mean for us? Okay, yeah, quantum physics are great, because the scholar says the things like, this is an amazing development, and this teaches us about quantum physics. And then the journalist is like, okay, but how does this apply to me? And they repeat the same question over and over and over, and the scholars don't want to say anything about it because they're afraid. What exactly are we talking about here? The universe is not locally real, and the physics Nobel Prize winners proved that. One of the more unsettling discoveries in the past half-century is that the universe is not locally real. Real, meaning that objects have definite properties independent of observation. Okay, so what does real mean? That everything exists even if you're not looking at it. I cannot believe this was something to do with morphic resonance. There's another researcher that I'm going to be featured at some point in this channel. I don't remember what his name is, but it's basically they go into the example right here. An apple can be read even when no one is looking. So what they're saying is that if there's an apple and you're looking at the apple, you're not really looking at an apple. There's no apple, there's no you. There is your brain, and there is the way that you transfer the information of the apple. The apple is made of information of all these particles, and these particles reflect light into your retina, and your retina transfers that information into your visual cortex, and then your visual cortex somehow in the process of consciousness, which is called qualia, which is where do you keep the actual mental images. I've talked about this before somewhere. I'm not sure which video. I speak about this in every video, but there's one video where I went further into this. I'm going to link it if I find it, or you can find it below. But I'm talking about this. What exactly is qualia? This strange mechanism that neuroscientists specifically say we don't really understand how all of this works. Somehow our consciousness represents all this information as some sort of a mental image, and if we open a brain and we dissect the brain in very small pieces, we're never gonna find a mental image. We're not gonna be able to pull it out somehow or anything like that. Where is this mental image? Where is this conception of the apple? Where is this color? Where is this texture? Where does it exist? This is why the idea of a metaphysical realm of quote-unquote, you want to call it imagination, simply a metaphysical aspect of reality, it has got to be somewhere. That's where the apple that you're looking at exists. But in our physical reality, it doesn't really exist. It's just information. It's just particles that through this relationship between your brain and the reality that you're looking at, that's how you conceive an apple. And this is why the problem of quantum physics is huge. Because what they're saying is only when you look at the apple does it become an apple. And when you pull it into the more microscopic level, when you look at one particle, it's only when you look at it that it happens. When you're not looking at it, those particles in the apple are in a state of superposition. It can be anything. What is this telling us? Reality is not real. It's only our perception of the apple which creates the apple. But the scientists are saying, wait, this is not what we experience in reality. Our information does not combine, goes back and forth. We don't become one. Our particles do not become one with the apple when we see it. And as I made the argument, maybe if you do enough psychedelic substances, something else is going to happen. Or you have an out-of-body experience where you experience the world in some sort of a different way, as some sort of a matrix of information, how some of the reports are saying. Perhaps it's a little bit differently. Or people who go into near-death experiences or lucid dreaming, where they're saying that they can look at the particles of things and go inside them. They literally say this in these reports. I personally have had a dream where I focused on something and I went inside it. When we put all of the information together, things start to make sense. And this is why all of this is so weird. What we're looking at is at the possibility that we live in some sort of a holographic reality, of some sort of people like to call it quote-unquote simulation. This is a wrong way to think about it, but people understand it as this somehow. It's more correctly a virtual reality. Okay, an apple can be read even when no one is looking. Local means objects can only be influenced by their surroundings, and that any influence cannot travel faster than light. Investigation at the frontiers of quantum physics have found that these things cannot both be true. Instead, the evidence shows objects are not influenced solely by their surroundings, and they may also lack definite properties prior to measurement. This is what I'm saying. When nobody is looking at it, it's in a state of superposition. Only when they lack definite properties prior to measurement. Measurement is when you look at it. If nobody is in the room where that apple is, the apple does not exist. We render reality through consciousness, because only consciousness can create such reality. As I said, even when they go through the information on a memory card, on a sensor, it's only when people look at it when there's some sort of reality. Otherwise, does it really exist? As Albert Einstein famously bemoaned, funny the words that they use here, to a friend, do you really believe the moon is not there when you are not looking at it? Now, there's a lot of subtleties into this. There's a lot of there's way to look at it pragmatically. There's way to look at it philosophically, and so on. So the moon, is it there when you look at it? Maybe, maybe not. Is it because of consciousness? There's many things that can go into consciousness. There are theories that suggest that everything is conscious, even inanimate objects. So consciousness is everything. Maybe the moon is there because, there's consciousness in something else that we don't understand. Maybe the air is conscious. Maybe the trees are conscious. Maybe all of it is consciousness. So in a way, yes, the world does exist even when you don't look at it, because everything is consciousness. But at the same time, it's only this consciousness which exists at large. And now when you apply focus and intent and look into things, that's when the weird things start happening. And does this mean that, quantum physics is wrong? It's the main weird theories of quantum physics? No. We are refining what we're looking at here. Of course, as it says here, the demise of local realism has made a lot of people very angry, and I've experienced that in firsthand. When I make this kind of videos, some people literally just go berserk on me. They become hostile, and they become for some reason this does not go well. I'm being regarded as a bad move with people, and I had to block a lot of people because I'll take any argument. I'll take any respectful argument that you can make. And I actually made videos and I featured some of the counter arguments, and this is something that I want to do with the channel, to start a counter argument section where I go into these interesting counter arguments. Sometimes one person said something about epigenetics when I made that video about pre-mortal existence, and my counter argument was that it does not, it was a very good argument. It does not deny the original premise though. What exactly is epigenetics? We go into circles. I've talked about this before. I'm going to be going into the future. But in any case, but when people just go hostile, That's the worst thing that you can do. We cannot be hostile when we're talking about quantum physics, when we're talking about science, when we're talking about the bulk of the data. We can make counter arguments. We cannot go hostile. And this is one of the issues in science that is happening right now. People just become angry. Scientists become angry because they don't like what they're seeing. Like it says here on the first one, they find hard to swallow, so they become hostile. This is just dumb, primitive, human monkey response to things, and this cannot happen if we are looking for truth. All right, so as I said, I'm not gonna go into the whole article, but I'm just gonna browse around these things, and I'm gonna go into one paragraph that I found really interesting, and it's just delving further into the whole Bell thing. Now, if you go on Google and YouTube, the Nobel Prize thing, they're gonna tell you the whole story. I'm not gonna repeat that story here because they always talk about the story and they don't go further into the details. They don't go further into what it actually means. They just tell the story, and you can find it anywhere, so just go and find it. I'm just gonna go quickly into it. So the whole thing about Einstein didn't like this, and then with other scientists, they developed this EPR thing, the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox, which is basically what I already said in the first one. Is these two particles are entangled somehow, and then when one is when they measure one, the other one instantly changes or is correlated to the first one. So that's the EPR paradox, the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox. Now, so they did that. They did that in 1935, and so Einstein said there's these hidden variables, and basically what they said was there's something else going on. It cannot be that there's non-locality. It cannot be that the universe works like this. There's something going on. So they said there's these hidden variables in these particles which make them behave in such a way. So it says here, Einstein attacking quantum mechanics. It went unnoticed, but then this guy, von Neumann, who was the one who proved him wrong, and then Grit Hermann, they proved him wrong, and then there was a back and forward by these scientists trying to prove the theory, trying to counter argument against the theory, and so on and so forth. But then came Bell in 1964, discovered the same flaws in von Neumann's argument that Hermann had, and then in a triumph of rigorous thinking, Bell concocted a theorem that dragged the question of hidden variables from its metaphysical quagmire. I find the whole thing so funny. I love the words they use sometimes. Onto the concrete ground of experiment. So this is what has been happening in the last, this is 1964, there's 40, 50, 60 years. The last 60, so there was the first quantum revolution in the 1900s, and 60 years after that there was the second quantum revolution with all of these researchers. Now in 2020, around where we are right now, it's been 60 years since then. This is why I'm talking about a third quantum revolution, which is everything that has been happening in the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Where what is happening, just pretty much like Bell was proving with concrete ground experiments, he was proving this whole metaphysical quagmire that the thought experiments from Einstein and from others were thought about. And as it says here, it was made, this EPR, the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox, was made as an absurdity to prove that quantum physics needs to be revised. God does not play dice with the universe like that. And so they made these thought experiments, but then they came these scientists which actually made them concrete, and this is what they did in that the last video that I talked about. They produced Wigner's friend experiment, and now we have the results of these experiments, and what do we do with them? As I said, I linked it somewhere on the screen, or is below somewhere in the description of this video. Now in the last, as I said, 5-10 years, we are producing these thought experiments with more rigorous and with more standards and with more emphasis on certain things, and the results, all of them, are pointing towards the fact that yes, it's weird, we don't understand it, there's non-locality, there's two realities at the same time. Is everything that was thought to be weird and bizarre about quantum physics, it is, and it is real. Alright, so what's the deal with this Bell theorem? Normally, hidden variable theories and quantum mechanics predict indistinguishable experimental outcomes. What Bell realized is that under precise circumstances, an empirical discrepancy between the two can emerge. An empirical discrepancy between the two can emerge. What is this discrepancy? So the thing is that through empiricism, through actually doing it, there can be a discrepancy between the two. So what he's saying is that the rule is not the final thing. There can be something else. There's something else going on. In the eponymous Bell test, an evolution of the EPR thought experiment, as I said, Einstein, Podolsky, Rosa. I'm actually going to link it somewhere. I'll link it below in the description of this video. If anybody is new to this whole thing and is not sure what the whole thing means, you can go through it. This is a little article that goes a little bit into it. Yeah, so in this experiment, this is in the eponymous Bell test, Alice and Bob received the same paired particles. Alice and Bob is how they always make these A and B, these two starting points to make these experiments. But now they each have two different detector settings. Alright, Alice and Bob received the same paired particles, but now they each have two different detector settings, A and A, B and B. These detector settings allow Alice and Bob to ask the particles different questions. I find it funny. This is kind of word that I find. They ask the particles, and that's what I was talking about in the latest video. Who chooses reality? Because they talk about things like the particles choose. What if the particle chooses this? Now they're asking. Now they're gonna ask the particles different questions. An additional trick. They're tricking the particles somehow to throw off their apparent telepathy. So what does all of this mean? To ask the particles, to trick the particles. As I said, this is the second time in this video that I'm gonna make this argument. What is asking? What is tricking? What are we doing with these particles? What did Bell do to the experiment to provide different results? Regardless if they use a quantum computer, a sensor, whatever it is, a memory card, to measure, to apply this observer effect, to measure, to collapse the wave function into a reality, there is a conscious intent behind it. And at the end of the day, what's looking at the evidence, what's looking at the data, is a conscious being, a conscious intent, a conscious mind, which is trying to understand this quantum physics thing. So, isn't this Bell theorem applying consciousness and applying all these questions, all this asking and all these tricks to this apparent telepathy, to a reality? Aren't these conscious intentions that are being applied to the thing to produce a different outcome? This is the definition of magic. When you go into the definition of magic, is getting a result, getting an outcome based on will, based on intention. And if you go into the whole thing, the New Age law of attraction and all these things that are considered as woo, the power of the mind, and you just start going into all of these self-help books and so on and so forth. Aren't they applying conscious intents to these experiments? Isn't this what is going on here? And now, as I said, this is the fourth time that I said, I'm gonna keep saying it because this is important. Who chooses reality? I made this video before. Who chooses reality? And I went into this research of the Wigner's friend experiment. So, and I linked this. Published research, which in the few days that I've been looking into it, it changed somehow. It got updated and on the website or something. And luckily on the actual video I have it as it was, and the wording is different. The wording is certainly different, but this is what they're saying. While observer independence has long remained inaccessible to empirical investigation, recent no-go theorems construct an extended Wigner's friend scenario with 4 entangled observers that allows us to put it to the test in a state-of-the-art 6-photon experiment. We here realize this extended Wigner's friend scenario, experimentally violating the association differentiated Bell-type inequality. This is the Bell test that I'm talking about, by 5 standard deviations, going into it and then looking into it, trying to achieve a specific result. This is the Bell-type. Applying this is going into it and applying different rigorous standards to it. This result lends considerable strength to interpretations of quantum theory already set in an observer-dependent framework and demands for revision of those which are not. I'm going to read it again. This result lends considerable strength. It helps. It makes it be more real. It helps the argument. It adds considerable strength to interpretation of quantum theory already set in an observer-dependent framework. This is the observer-dependent framework, and what they're saying in the original, what I was saying in that video was that this could what some of the researchers said is that this could redefine science, because when we apply the scientific method to things, we have these scientists looking at the results. And the question is, if in quantum theory, in the interpretations of quantum theory, the observer-dependent framework is real, and so the consciousness of the scientists, which this has been proven in some other research in healing and so on and so forth, are the people involved in the research affecting the outcome with their observer effect, with their consciousness perhaps. If indeed, and all points towards this, consciousness has an effect in the quantum phenomenon, consciousness has an effect in reality. Consciousness is how we perceive such reality out of the soup of superposition that really exists, that has been looked at through this research and through some of the other research where they modulate the wave function particle collapse. It's only perception which creates a reality, which all seems to be some sort of a holographic soup, and only our perception creates it. If all of this proves to be true, which as I'm saying, it seems to be the truth, could the observers, which in this case are the scientists, affect the outcome of the experiments? This is what these scientists are saying right here, 2019. And what Bell was doing in 1964, he was applying all of these intentions and all of these tricks and questions and all of these things into the experiments to produce a specific outcome. So what they're saying in this research is there objective reality demands a revision for those which are not observer dependent. So if there's a framework which is not observer dependent, which would say that there's some sort of objective reality, this needs to be revised, because it seems that everything is observer dependent, which means is that we create the outcome with our conscious intent. Could it be that the Bell theorems, you know, if you look for something, you're gonna find it, and this is what they found. You know, they were looking into it and they found it because they were applying intention to the whole thing. Now this already got me some downvotes in this video. This already got me some people to click off, even if perhaps they spent a few minutes, quite a few minutes looking into all of this. It doesn't matter. This is what we're looking at. This is what seems to be happening. And this is what they're saying. If we apply this conscious intent, then we have to redefine science, because then we cannot trust science anymore. If the focus of the scientist is gonna have an effect on the result, then we cannot trust science anymore. So all of these things, all of these intentions and so on, were looked at as loopholes. So okay, it goes forward. Measuring the correlation multiple times for many particle pairs, therefore, so they do it one and again and again and again and again and again, could prove which theory was correct. If the correlation remained below a limit derived from Bell's theorem, this would suggest hidden variables were real. If it exceeded Bell's limit, then the mind-boggling tenets of quantum mechanics would reign supreme. What are these quantum mechanics tenets? What is the main weirdness of this quantum? Is what they're saying right here, that it's an observer-dependent framework, and applying conscious intent to something produces a result, and it is our consciousness which collapses the wave function, and it is our perception of reality. There's no reality, there's no objective reality. These are the tenets of the quantum theory, the original quantum theory, which Einstein didn't like, which none of these hardcore scientists like. Well, this is what we're looking at. And as I said, this is just science. This is just purely science. When we apply the bulk of reports from NDEs, from out-of-body experience, I said, I linked it below. This is also very important. This was in 2022, a scientific consensus statement. Scientists and people on the medical field from multiple universities, they are making a consensus for the future research of near-death experiences due to the fact that there are, quote-unquote, hundreds and millions of reports saying the same thing. When we add these anecdotal evidence and when we add all the bulk of data of psychedelics, everything becomes so much simpler. But the reason why I've been talking about quantum physics in the last month, we came into this Nobel Prize thing, which I was not expecting. I've been looking into it for a while, for the last 2 months. I mean, there's a bunch of research that I have not even posted in this channel. And this was a surprise for me. I hadn't even run into this research. It was because I saw it in mainstream, which to me was like, wow, it's been proved on and on and on and on that all of this weirdness, all of this is real, and it's an amazing thing. The implications are huge, as I've been saying. So all of this is to create a larger theory of what exactly, who are we as human beings? What are we doing here? What is this whole thing about? Alright, so just to have some sort of a conclusion, this is the final stretch of this video. It's been going for long enough, but this is why I wanted to come back to the first article that I was looking at. And there was all these articles or all these things that I wanted to go into, but I'm probably gonna save those for another, for as I continue with these videos on quantum physics. But I wanted to close this article and this video with this. Is basically to summarize what we're looking at with the latest research is simply totally crazy. How they say in this article, it's totally crazy. In doing so, Aspect proved Einstein wrong, but he was magnanimous to his greatest physicists. I like to say that Einstein owes great merit in raising the question. Of course, Aspect said, adding that non-locality does not allow you to send a useful message faster than light. I'm not really sure what this means. Even Aspect finds it weird to have accepted the idea of something quote-unquote totally crazy, weird, alien, magic world of quantum physics, like non-locality, into my quote-unquote mental images. Mentalism. We're living in the mind of Ahura Mazda. That is the implication here. The other physics Nobel winners, Austria's Anton Selinger and John Clauser of the US, also tested Bell's theory, rolling out loopholes and helping pave the way for what has been called the second quantum revolution. So this one started in the 1960s with all these scientists going into it, with Bell going into it, and just refining what the original, the pioneers of quantum physics in the 1900s started. They were refining them, they were going further into it. So it's all of them. I talked about Selinger doing the final one, and the one from Selinger is the one that I'm going to be linking below. But you know, this is why all three of them won the Nobel Prize. And there's a bunch of other scientists going into all of these things, just pulling all these little pieces to the puzzle. Discoveries by Selinger, dubbed the quote-unquote quantum pope, have shown the potential for quantum entanglement to be used in encryption, quantum teleportation, and more. As I said in one of the mainstream media articles of these short videos that they do, they were talking about encrypted banking. Like, okay, we just found out that the universe is not real. There's no locality. That oneness, what all of these mystics have been calling for all throughout philosophy and all throughout these ancient tales and transcendental experiences, what people who have died are saying, coming from near-death experience reports and so on and so forth, what could be a revolution in how we understand ourselves as human beings. What could be a revolution, what we understand as divinity, as why we breathe. And what the mainstream media is saying, that it could help things like encrypted banking, is almost a slap to the face of what the whole thing really means. It really bothers me. But in any case, there's some good things that are coming to the sound system that uses quantum entanglement to diagnose breast cancer. I guess this is a really good, useful thing that they're looking into. Felix from Imperial College London, again, College London. But now, the reason why I wanted to bring this last part of the article is this. But perhaps the greatest mystery about quantum entanglement remains one that puzzled Einstein nearly a century ago. Why? Why does it occur? We have to be humble in the face of physics, Phillips said, adding that it was the same as any another aspect of nature, quote unquote. It just is. Is it? Is it all there is? It just is? Why? As same as other aspects of nature, it just is. Is this what years of science have produced? Is this the final answer to things? Is this all we have? No. This answer, and this is the end of the article. There's no more. This is where we are in 2022. It just is. Why is there non-locality? Why is there oneness? Why is everything connected? Why does consciousness seem to affect our very reality? Why is consciousness seem to be everything that there is? And there is no locality. Everything is connected. It just is. Why? No, this answer does not suffice. And as I've been going on in this channel, and as I've been going since the beginning of this channel, since the beginning of the project, that's when I started writing this, what I'm looking at and what I am proposing with the pragmatic philosophy that I'm going to be adding in the future, and with all of this, as I'm going to continue to go into the ongoing research, I believe this is not what just is. I believe if we only look at quantum physics, if we only look at the science, yes, this is the final answer that we can come up. It just is. We don't know. We just don't know. We're going to focus on encrypted banking or some other blunt, useless thing that our society has created. I mean, this is important to diagnose breast cancer. This is amazing. This is more important than anything of the other things that they are talking about here. But is this all there is? No. As I said, the project is called A Rational Divine Outline, because I believe that we have enough data, enough evidence, and enough resources to start developing an outline, a basic outline, to get us closer to a reality of everything, a theory of everything, to start answering the questions: who are we as human beings? Why are we here? What is this whole thing about? As I said, the reason why I started to go into quantum physics is because I wanted to prove that there might be some sort of a thing that some people are calling the quantum field of consciousness, or quantum consciousness, or the quantum field. This idea, as I made that video about scientific theory, the soul from the Penrose and Camera of theory, the ORCOR, the orchestrated objectivity reduction. What they're saying that what makes a person are all of these bits of information that are accumulated through a lifetime, and this is quantum information, which is in specific parts of the brain which are released into the cosmos, if you will, at the moment of death, and they join the larger consciousness, the larger quantum field, if you may. So what are these bits of quantum information? They're just that. They're information. We live in a matrix of information. Everything is information, and it's non-local. There's no locality to it, and this is what they proved here. There's no locality to the whole thing. The universe is not local. Everything is connected. So we start to add these pieces to the puzzle. Now, when the researcher, when the journalists were asking that person, that scholar, oh, what does this mean to us? What does this advancing quantum mechanics, quantum physics mean to us? Are they going to bring the ORCOR theory? Are they going to bring the fact that perhaps this means that we're all part of the mind of Ahura Mazda, according to Zoroastrianism? No, he's not going to bring any of that. But all of that exists out there. And as I said, one thing that I want to start doing with the outline, with this channel, is doing the ongoing research video where I go into the actual published research that is proving that reality is some sort of a hologram, and that perhaps we affect everything with our conscious intent. And then going into the reports, going into the near-death experience, going into psychedelic reports and the UFO report. And when I talk about all of these things, some people get scared because all the information they have on psychedelics are negative, and all the information they have on near-death experience are the hellish experience, and all the information they have on the UFO abduction are things that scares them and are the negative things. But when you read 1,000 reports of each of these aspects that I'm talking about, and this is the moment where I'm bringing this up, and if somebody made it to the end of this video, half of the people are just gonna say nope and just click off this video. That's fine, but the reality is out there, and when you look at these reports, you start finding the correlations, and at the end of the day, everything seems to be positive. I made a video on how, despite high strangeness, the final truth seems to be really positive. And in some of the reports on abductions, you know, people are being communicated that there's this connectedness between everything. And there's a source, and all that matters is evolution, and all that matters is truth, and all that matters is the evolution of the universe. It has nothing to do with an external race trying to conquer the humankind, or you know, the negative things that go into the mainstream media related to these more paranormal, more fringe things. No, most of it at the end of the day comes out positive. Same with near-death experiences. It turns out that there seems to be this source, that there seems to be these beings of non-human beings, non-physical beings who communicate with people and tell them about all these mysteries of the universe, which our science are barely starting to understand, which our science are just flirting with. So there is all that bulk of data and evidence that is out there, and when we correlate all of that data with what the science is saying, everything becomes much easier. So this is the true implication of what they're saying here, that the universe is not local. The final implication is that everything is connected. There is only oneness. And so then theories like in Zoroastrianism, where they were saying that we are all living in the mind of Ahura Mazda being this positive ultimate being, if you may call it God. We're all living in the mind of it. And when you go into the Kybalion and they say that mentalism is all there is, all is mental, everything is part of the same thing, there's only one consciousness. And when you go into all of this, everything starts making sense. And this is the final true implication of proving that the universe is not local. So as I said, what are we gonna do with that? What could we do with all of that? If people were starting to understand all of these things, it would change our institutions, it would change how we behave towards each other, it would change everything. It would change our understanding of who and what we are as human beings. And further, as I continue with this project, this is going to be the main focus of this outline, to correlate the scientific research, and do not stop at it just is. Do not stop as okay, that's all we know, that's all it is, done. Why are they not talking about all of these reports? Because they either lack the information, which is most likely what's happening here, or they're afraid to go into it. We shouldn't be afraid. And this is what I'm going to go into this channel. I'm going to go into the scientific research and all the bulk of anecdotal data and evidence as I continue with this outline. If you are on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.